Kelsey Mitchell. Kelsey Mitchell resigns with the Indiana Fever. So the best backcourt in the WNBA is back.
The best backcourt in the WNBA remains intact because Kelsey Mitchell is back, staying with the Indiana Fever and going back-to-back with that back.
Why is it that whenever there is significant news, lowers when no one is making a payment? But pay attention to this one, it's enormous. Officially, Kelsey Mitchell has resigned, had her secured by the Indiana Fever, position as a franchise cornerstone.
From the moment Kelsey Mitchell stepped on the floor at Gainbridge Fieldhouse, her time with the Indiana Fever has been memorable, impactful, and historic. Mitchell, she'll pull up. Here's a three.
If you believed this, the action was expected, reconsider. Mitchell had choices. She was some WNBA players and unrestricted free agents. Even insiders conjectured that she might go on, but she's remaining in. The Fever and Indiana just made an enormous declaration regarding their future. So, what does this signify for the group? Let's talk about Mitchell and the league. Regarding it,
Indiana Fever posted, in 7 short years, Kelsey Mitchell has left an indelible mark on the franchise, the state of Indiana, and the entire WNBA.
Everybody. Okay, let's discuss it, Kelsey. Officially, Mitchell will remain with the. If you have had Indiana Fever, if you watch the WNBA, you are aware that this is an enormous deal. It's not just about one selection of a player to remain with a team. This focuses on the implications of the Fever for the league as well as for women's. Now, some would say basketball. Indeed, this was to be expected. Always a solid contender to step down, but expected does not imply inconsequential. Fever securing her is among the off-season's biggest moves, not since she was about to depart. However, due to the significance of her presence, Kelsey, for this team going ahead, Mitchell has had the illness ever since. She has endured the worst of it in 2018. She has witnessed roster changes in coaching, turnover, missed postseason opportunities, and reconstruction. After rebuilding and enduring everything, she remained constant, showing up and putting in the effort and set the team's scoring record, season following season. Let's face it, how many participants would remain dedicated to a group that hasn't proven capable of producing a successful season? Many years in a time when celebrities are always moving, searching for the Mitchell, the ideal circumstance for pursuing a ring. Her decision to stay speaks much about her devotion and conviction in the nature of the Fever. Developing that conviction wasn't always despite the fact that many believed she might depart, and they had a valid excuse for doing so. Mitchell was a free agent with no restrictions, indicating that she was in total control of. Unlike limited free agents, she has a bright future, who are constrained in their choices by the ability of the present club to match offers. Mitchell had the option to leave without strings were fastened. And then there were the WNBA legend Candace Parker was rumored to have anticipated Mitchell's departure, and all of us recall what Sheryl Swoopes stated.
People had mentioned Sheryl Swoopes, and it caused me to kind of chuckle a little bit, but it made me want to go back to some of the things Sheryl Swoopes said. And it's just kind of interesting seeing as Kelsey Mitchell, someone Sheryl Swoopes mentioned by name, has decided
she produced when she implied that there were some waves, Fever players who desired to leave, suggesting that something was happening in that changing area that made athletes uncomfortable.
I'm a boy. There's a lot of other going on that players are like, this ain't where I want to be.
Over there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some new shit going on around there.
It's a lot. So you have players that are very significant on this Indiana Fever team that are like, I don't
want to be here.
This is where I want to be.
Yeah. Now listen, there's a lot to play for.
She produced those remarks right away. People began making connections with she. Was there tension when discussing Mitchell? Evidently, behind the scenes, that wasn't the situation if Kelsey Mitchell chose to leave. She had the option to leave, but she chose not to. Alone ought to terminate all the conjecture regarding the internal cause of the fever. Chemistry, regardless of any problems, existed but weren't sufficient to drive. Mitchell is away, so you should know something on the direction this team is taking. Let's now discuss the reasons behind this move. Is crucial. Mitchell isn't merely. She serves as the basis for another player. Last season's Heat offense, she shot 47% and averaged 19.2 points per game off of the field and eliminated 40% of her three figures. Aren't just excellent, they're elite, and you don't simply substitute a player of that caliber. If she had died, they would have had a enormous gap to be filled, and one that they probably wouldn't have been capable of fixing. Free agency is up, and it's not just regarding her scoring. Mitchell has become into of the most trustworthy participants in the league, which she has participated in since 2018. 235 out of 240 games that are at that level. Such durability is uncommon, particularly in a league where seasons can be derailed by injuries. Being a player who regularly accessible is equally as desirable as possessing a player that can score a lot of points. Then, this is her altercation with Caitlin Clark, is when the exciting part begins. When Clark was drafted by the Fever with a #1 overall selection for the franchise's environment shifted. This team abruptly changed from being later considered to be a must-watch on TV. Just Clark's presence has raised the temperature in the spotlight, yet she is unable to do it by herself. She needs friends who can play with her and make the most of her. Kelsey Mitchell. Mitchell's strengths is the ideal backcourt companion for Clark. The reason is that her game complements Clark's skill set in all respects. Clark is a passer of a shot and a playmaker, a player who flourishes as a creator when Mitchell is holding the ball in her hands. However, he is a superb off-ball player. She doesn't have to dominate as a scorer. Assets to be successful, she can catch, shoot, then cut to the hoop, and arrange the floor such that this makes her teammates' lives easier. Significant because defenses will pay close attention to Clark since she's going to draw two teams. She will receive She and teams are thrown the best defenders are going to do every effort to remove the ball from her grasp, but when something takes place when a shooter like Mitchell on the periphery indicates that defenses must not afford to fail as well. If they do, they will receive. Mitchell has also demonstrated that he is penalized. She may perform well in offenses that move quickly. It is precisely the type of setup that it will be Clark's desire to run. Clark enjoys pushing the pace to get outside in transition and provide her with open shots. Mitchell's capacity to manage the team, spot up and knock down shots on the floor, transition, making her a crucial component. Then, in this new look Fever squad, we cannot forget Aaliyah Boston. Boston is the focal point of this discussion concerning her. She was the rookie of the team's front court the previous season, and she's a defensive post presence that is dominant, force, and a player with the ability to manage the Mitchell on the inside of the game. The Boston, Clark, and point perimeter. The Fever in the paint has the basis of something unique. The Fever is more than just holding on to a top player. Mitchell's resignation means they're creating a authentic core capable of competing, yet they're not championship, let's face it, candidates as of yet. There is still work to be done. They require a real power to accomplish this. Forward to finish the starting lineup. They currently have a lot of adaptable pieces, but they require that last. Someone who can stretch, defend, and rebound. They also need to build up the floor. One of the largest is their bench depth. Distinctions between the winning teams. The playoff teams are currently deep. The Stars are in Indiana, but they must complete the roster with dependable roles. Players who are able to enter and make a contribution. When starters require a rest, that's why Mitchell's resignation was critically crucial. Since it's the first step, you can't create a winning team if you're losing your best players on a regular basis. The Fever had to ensure that they maintained, including Mitchell, before they could concern about including additional components. The response to this signing has been enormous. Naturally, Caitlin Clark's reaction states everything. She never had any doubts about anything. That Mitchell would return, Aaliyah. Boston's response was equally. GM Amber Cox was passionate and even feverish, demonstrated the significance of this move for the company, and it's not only the Fever who are responding. All the league is observing the fact that the NBA team and the Indiana Pacers. Mitchell's homecoming is acknowledged. Volumes, this type of regard the Fever began to spread a year ago. Would an NBA team have ceased operations? Their celebration of a free agent in the WNBA, probably not signing that much. The reappearance of Mitchell is evolving, confirms Indiana's status as one of the most fascinating WNBA teams going into. By 2025, they are more than just a group of young. They are now a squad with stars instead of talent. They are remaining in place as a momentum-driven team, and a squad that is a couple of steps away from actually competing. So what can the Fever then progress into? Are the playoff contenders prepared to face the top teams in the league? And the most crucially, is this the start of? Indiana has something unique now that we've discussed. Kelsey Mitchell's resigning due to a fever is a huge deal. Let's stand back and examine what the team will actually gain from this action, the league, and the long-term effects of the fever. Outlook. It's undeniable that Indiana is currently among the most thrilling teams in the WNBA, which may sound odd, given that they haven't been sincere potential candidates for years, but when you observe the way this roster is developing, it's evident that for years, things have been shifting. The Fever was in the process of rebuilding. Despite their talent, they lacked the coaching situation's direction was unstable. Roster turnover was ongoing, and each year felt like a new one. Try to solve the problem, but when Caitlin Clark was picked, the script abruptly changed, and this wasn't merely about nurturing young athletes and wishing for the best. It turned out to be about creating a genuine contender and maintaining. Kelsey Mitchell was a significant first step. During that procedure, let's discuss the effect of Mitchell in the real game situations. It is one thing to claim that she is a fantastic player, but let's dissect precisely how she improves this team. First of all, she has exceptional scoring skill. When discussing WNBA guards who are capable of obtain a from any location where Mitchell must be. During that discussion, her capacity to, she is one of the finest at creating her own shots. She is among the league's top effective scorers, particularly in the WNBA. For a shooter with a high volume, a lot of players are capable of scoring 18 to 20 points each game, but not many people can do it on almost 40% of shots were made from the field, while 47% of three is a crazy amount of efficiency for a player on the periphery who can harm defenses in several ways. If you play her as well tight, she can take you by car. If you give her space, take a quick first step, she'll give you a three-face, and if she understands how to trap you if you try to locate the available teammate, which is where Caitlin Clark enters the splendor of. This rear court is neither of those things. Neither Clark nor Mitchell must be ball. To be effective, they must be both dominant and able to play without a ball, which implies the fever may manifest in several ways. Sets without losing its predictability. This is enormous since one of the largest the challenges faced by fledgling WNBA teams are predictability of offense. If a club only features a single main score defense that can quickly adapt, but if you have two players with both ball handling and score and build the defense for others, is always making decisions. Consider a scenario in which Clark is managing the ball at the key's top. Mitchell will be moving to the wing. 2 options remain set for the defense. In on Clark, providing Mitchell with a chance to look from 3 and send Mitchell assistance, allowing Clark to attack the rim, or locate Aaliyah Boston within this type of offensive adaptability is what distinguishes excellent teams from outstanding ones. And remember how this will affect. Boston's Aaliyah is already among the WNBA's top young post players. However, she has never performed with perimeter players with this level of talent last season. She needed to put in more effort than previously. Ought to have her touch defenses. Might pass out on her due to the fever. Lacked sufficient outdoor shooting time too, making them pay, which is currently being changed with Clark and Mitchell on the periphery. Teams are not allowed to just pack the paint against Boston now signifies more, better spacing and one-on-one possibilities, having a generally simpler time controlling in. Here is the post where we can view the actual. The effects of Mitchell remaining are not limited to about retaining a talented athlete, simplifying the game for all other players, and further overlooked aspect of Mitchell's game is what she can play in. The Fever wasn't really bad during the transition. Last season's transition team, but that's changing. Clark enjoys pushing the Mitchell is the ideal tempo running partner for her. She's quick, finishes nicely at the edge, and she is able to raise up without reluctance from 3. This group has the potential to lead the league in points for fast break if they completely dedicate yourself to an upbeat style. And the current WNBA game spacing is that the Fever is soaring and speeding up, putting themselves in the position of being among the most hazardous offensive units in the league, and the first step is to keeping their core intact. Let's now discuss what this squad will do next, because while keeping Mitchell is extremely common, are still unfinished if they wish to take they must handle a few important issues next. Places first and foremost, they need a power forward's current roster is